Right, so today we're going to get into how to build a 100 grand a year business in 90 days, and obviously using a smart scaling method. If you've seen any of my other YouTube videos, you know we talk about smart scaling, how to scale a business properly. There's a number of different ways that we do this. Simply, why is this possible? Like, how can we scale a service-based business to £100,000 a year? And when you actually look at 100 grand a year, like roughly it's 270 pound or dollars a day. That's literally it. And when it comes to the service-based business and the type of services that we take a look at, that's not a lot of money in terms of profit at all. So selling services is important because we're not selling our time. And time can come down to different things, especially when you're working a 9 to 5 and you factor in the exchange of time for money. It's near impossible with some of those type of businesses to really scale up from there. When we're using it with different services, and especially the outsourcing method where you're using contractors to do the work, the growth possibilities are kind of endless. And what we can do, especially being a service-based business, is the opportunities are kind of endless by adding on more services, adding on more contractors, and we'll kind of get onto that later in the video as well. Like I mentioned here, you use the outsourcing method to scale, onboarding more contractors, looking at new locations and looking to scale the business that way. And remembering that it's just kind of a numbers game. Like, it is basically a numbers game when it comes to wanting to scale up to 10 grand a month. We're taking a look at the different data, we're taking a look at our lead cost per acquisition, things like that, making sure that we've got the margins in the right jobs and the right services, and then looking to simply scale up from there. So let's look at a bit of a smart scaling formula when it comes to growing a service-based business. So like I mentioned there with the data, the first thing we're going to do is track every single lead that we get in and then scale from there. And what we can use with like the tracking is just a simple CRM tracking spreadsheet. You see all the HubSpots and there's so many of them now. It's unbelievable. But the trouble is they're quite expensive, especially when you're a startup business. And we don't need to be spending hundreds of pounds a month on a CRM when you can literally just use a spreadsheet. When my first company was scaling up over £1 million, I was still using a spreadsheet to track all my leads and my data and everything. I tried out, I think I tried HubSpot for a bit, and there was another one as well, but I just didn't see the real benefit in them, to be perfectly honest with you. The way that I tracked my data and my lead cost and then my cost per acquisition and my profit margins and everything like that, and my business numbers were done on an accounting software. Nice and easy to use, I could pull out the numbers. My actual CRM tracking with my leads and my projects and things like that, I still did it on a spreadsheet, and I still do to this day as well. And it just keeps it really simple. So what we want to track is the total leads and then our lead cost, and that's what we want to work out, our lead cost. So you work out your total lead cost by, if we're spending money on paid advertising, then you take the total amount of ad spend, let's do it in a month for this example, and then you take the total amount of leads and divide the ad spend by the total amount of leads. That will give you a lead cost. Now, with our blueprint, we aim at a lead cost in the region of £3 to £5 per lead. That is an absolutely dialed in lead cost, and it's massively scalable. Then what you want to do is take a look at which service is simply the most profitable. By doing that, we take a look at the services that are most profitable, making sure that our lead cost is still dialed in, and then we can look to scale from there by looking at the services that aren't really benefiting us that much. So at that point, we'll then double down on the profitable services. So some services cost less to fulfill, but make more profit. So to give you an example, I've done window cleaning here against pressure washing, right? It's quite a good comparison. Now, if let's say we're getting in domestic window cleaning leads, and we're paying £5 per lead for that domestic window cleaning, and off the back of that, we're getting £50. We're netting £50 off the back of a window clean. Whereas if we look at a pressure washing job, and we're still paying £5 per lead, but we're netting £500 off the back of it, then we've got the same lead cost, but we're probably spending the same amount of time dealing with that lead, dealing with the contractor and getting the job set up. So it makes perfect sense in the smart scaling method to turn off any advertising to window cleaning. If you're still getting some organic leads coming in off the back of it, or from your website and things like that, yeah, absolutely fine, take them on. You know, I always recommend taking on everything at the start. But why would we advertise to a £50 net profit when we could advertise the same lead cost to a £500 net profit? So that's where we need to track our data to see what kind of margins we're working towards. In the initial stages, we're going to advertise to everything. Absolutely. You know, we'll advertise to all the services, and then we can dial in the data kind of as we progress. So once we're cutting out the low profit services, that would be our next step. And then we're increasing the leads on our higher profit services. So we're reinvesting into the higher profit services, and that is simply a very easy way to scale smartly. If our lead cost remains the same and we still get the amount of leads coming in, naturally our gross profit margin is going to massively grow. Simple as that. And that's all we've done in that kind of time frame, which is roughly around about a 2 to 3 month time frame, is dialing in the data, making sure that the lead cost is good, scaling up with the higher profit margin services, and then eventually, if you want to get to a point where you advertise again for the lower profit margin services, fine, because some of these services can have good upsells as well, like especially a window clean against a pressure washing clean. We're going to get good upsells off the back of a window clean, even if you're relating it to commercial as well. The commercial side of things, window cleaning, the profits are a lot greater, the jobs are bigger, which makes the jobs a lot more profitable. But the back of the upsell, if we're upselling on the pressure washing side of things, that's an additional upsell as well. But in the initial stages, we're talking about scaling to 10 grand a month here. We want to do that in a short time frame with as little as time as possible spent on the leads and the contractors and working on growth of the business. Then that's the fastest way to do it. So just to run through that again, so we're tracking every lead cost and then we're scaling off the back of that. So we're doing our total ad spend divided by our total leads. That gives you your total lead cost. Then we're looking at what services are the most profitable, and we're going to turn off the categories that aren't that profitable at the moment, reinvest into the services that give us the best profit margins, and then look to scale from there. So if I give you a 3-month timeline on how to scale to 10 grand a month, in the initial stages with the basic setup, and you can refer to some of my other YouTube videos on kind of what services to incorporate and actually how to structure one of these businesses properly, we'll give you a brief understanding. We're going to choose around about 6 to 10 services to incorporate into our main business to start with. And now if you're just going to focus on cleaning, you can take a look at 2 recurring revenue services, you can take a look at some upsells, you can take a look at some higher profit margin services as well. Spread the budget across all of them with the lead generation, when we're talking inbound lead generation here. And then we're going to kind of see what services are going to start to work. You also need a good online setup framework. So you're going to need a website, a Google My Business. You can do a Facebook business page. Keep it nice and simple. Get the business online. And then all we're doing is we're getting the leads coming in, and then we're testing. We're testing constantly across this 1 to 2 month period to see where our best margins and where our best profits are coming from. So that's kind of like month 1. Month 2, we're going to focus on the high profit services. So we've done our data, we've got our smart scaling formula in place. We're going to focus on the high profit services, reinvest into those services. And you can pump things in, not just paid advertising, you can do some organic outbound reach. We can select an audience that you want to target and start pushing towards that audience as well. At the same time, with those services, we're going to see how far we can push the boundaries of our margins. So if we're getting a average pressure washing job and we're sitting around 30-40%, well, straight away let's start testing the boundaries a little bit more, pushing up to 50-60% 60% on net profit, even upwards of 100% in some cases, and looking to really push the boundaries on those margins, getting to a point that we start to feel maybe a bit of friction from our prospects, from our leads. Then we kind of know that we're hitting the right mark. And again, keep pricing those services. If we want to increase lead flow, we'll reinvest further into the ads, increase lead flow, and then really start looking at where we are in terms of margins and hitting that 10 grand a month mark. In terms of additionally scaling, if we are turning up lead flow, we're going to probably need to onboard more contractors at this stage. We'll onboard more contractors, take a look at some more locations, because our contractors in a certain location will be able to take on a certain amount of work. Now, if they want to scale with us, then they're going to take on more staff, because they're more than likely hire staff for our contractors. We don't want them subcontracting as well. And then we can, if that's the case, great, we can offer them more work, we can scale in the areas that we're doing at the moment. If not, let's take a look at some more locations, start to scale the business nationally, and simply by onboarding more contractors. So then month 3, we really only want to be spending our ads on the high ticket still, because we're still looking at scaling. If we're onboarding more contractors in new locations, then we need to get the ads working in those locations and optimizing those ads to make sure that we are still getting decent margins, we're still getting a good lead cost, and that it's scalable. If it's scalable, we've got good lead costs, we've got good margins, then we can continue to make sure that we're just spending on the high ticket at this stage in those locations and look to scale from there. And by this point, you should be pretty solid on your way to your 10 grand a month mark. So then what we can do is we can begin to kind of start to systemize everything at that point. We can do the automotive side of stuff, we can onboard virtual assistants and so on and so forth to really start alleviating that pain point of dealing with all the leads. At the same time, you're probably in a position where we're doing that 10 grand a month net profit that we can onboard, and we can actually directly hire as well if you want to, like the likes of an operations manager or something like that. That's going to give you time to focus even more on the business, not in the business, where you're not dealing with the operations side of things as well. So we'll start to look to systemize you around about month 3. And then from there, if we're scaling up, kind of like 2-3 jobs per day at this point, with really, really good margins, straight away, I've put 10 grand a month here, but realistically, we should be talking around about £1,000 a day at this point in terms of really scaling, because everything's dialed in when we kind of get to that point. That's literally a 3-month time frame that we can do this in, and it's so scalable. It's just a case of making sure we've got this blueprint in place. Obviously, we have a blueprint with like our online setup framework and things like that, so making sure that's dialed in as well. Beginning to systemize everything, making everything feel a lot more automated with the business, which in turn makes the business feel easy. From there, scale it up, 2 to 3 jobs a day. You're going to be landing contracts at this point as well, which gives you those profit margins, recurring revenue every single month. If you haven't got 10k per month at that point, then we've got a problem, and we need to kind of assess absolutely everything. If you've done this correctly, there's no reason why you shouldn't be pushing upwards of 10 grand a month at that point. And again, if you look at my business history, if you don't know my business background, my first business was a cleaning company. It did 1.3 million in 3 years. Our second year at the same time, because I had no idea what I was doing. The back end of our first year, we were tracking 10 grand a month, but actually when I got my blueprint in place properly with lead generation and I systemized everything at the same time as well, that's when everything absolutely scaled through the roof with me. And in my second business, the way that I scaled it really, really quickly, I hit over 10 grand in my first month by using this exact method. And then if you don't know, I sold that business for 6 figures that had a contract with Tesla as well. So this is kind of the smart scaling formula that we implement at the SCC, and you can do this yourself as well if you're starting this off just by using like our content and things like that. Fantastic. If you get stuck on anything, by all means give us a call. At the same time, if you do want to start a business like this, I'll put a link below in the comment section, and you're more than welcome to have a chat with me and my team, and let's get you to 10 grand a month.